It was February 7th, 2025. A day that started like any other. I was driving home after a long day of work as a journalist, my mind buzzing with deadlines and stories I needed to finish. The rain was coming down hard, and the roads were slick. I remember gripping the steering wheel tightly, trying to focus on the road ahead. But then, out of nowhere, a truck skidded into my lane. Everything happened so fast, the screech of tires, the impact, the world spinning out of control. The last thing I remember was the sound of crushing metal, and then nothing. Darkness, silence. I didn't feel pain or fear. It was as if I had been lifted out of my body, like I was floating. I could see myself below, trapped in the wreckage, but I wasn't afraid. I felt peace, a kind of peace I had never known before. It was like I had stepped into another reality, one where time didn't exist. I didn't know it then, but I was clinically dead. For 13 minutes, I was gone from this world. In that place beyond life, I became aware of something indescribable. It wasn't a physical space, but a realm of pure awareness, like I was part of everything and everything was part of me. I felt a presence, a radiant, overwhelming presence that filled me with love and understanding. It was Jesus. I didn't see him in the way we imagine from paintings or movies. He was light, truth, and love all at once. He didn't speak in words, but I understood him perfectly. He showed me how everything in our world is connected to our actions, our prayers, even our thoughts. It was like seeing an intricate web of energy, where every choice we make ripples out and affects the world in ways we can't even imagine. He showed me that there's so much more to life than what we see, that there's a spiritual battle happening all around us, and most of us are completely unaware of it. I felt both awe and sorrow at the beauty of this truth, and sorrow for how blind we are to it in our daily lives. As I stood there in that spiritual realm, Jesus began to show me visions of the earth. I saw a global crisis unfolding, centered around oil and energy. It was like watching a storm build on the horizon. Slow at first, but inevitable. He showed me how OPEC was making strategic moves, cutting off supplies and manipulating markets in ways that would cripple the U.S. energy sector. But this once just about economics was part of a larger, darker plan. I saw world leaders making decisions, thinking they were in control, but they were being influenced by forces they couldn't see. It was chilling to realize how much of what happens in our world is driven by unseen spiritual forces. Jesus made it clear. This wasn't just a battle for resources, it was a battle for souls. The crisis was designed to create fear, to make people desperate enough to accept control in exchange for security. I felt a deep urgency as he showed me these things, like I was being given a warning that I had to share. But the most shocking part was seeing how interconnected everything was. Jesus showed me how real, heartfelt prayers create ripples in this spiritual web. He showed me communities coming together, people helping each other, and how those acts of love and faith could counteract the darkness. But he also showed me the opposite. People turning on each other, falling into deception, trusting corrupt systems instead of seeking the truth. It was like watching two forces at war, light and darkness, truth and lies. And the scariest part was realizing how many people were unaware of the battle they were in. Jesus emphasized that this wasn't just about surviving the coming crisis. It was about staying spiritually awake. He said, "Many will fall because they trust in man instead of me." Those words hit me hard. I could feel the weight of what he was showing me, and I knew I had to share it, no matter how hard it would be. As the visions continued, Jesus showed me the true nature of the battle we're facing. It's not just about oil, money, or power, it's about control over humanity itself. He revealed how governments and world leaders, even those who seem powerful, are being manipulated by hidden forces. These forces thrive on fear, division, and chaos. I saw how people would be deceived into giving up their freedoms, thinking it was for their own good. Jesus warned me that desperate times would lead desperate people to accept control disguised as security, but he also showed me that there's hope. He said, "Those who seek me will find strength. Those who pray will be protected." It was a call to action, a reminder that our greatest weapon in this battle is faith. I felt a mix of emotions, fear for what's coming, but also a deep sense of purpose. I knew I had to warn people, to tell them to prepare not just physically, but spiritually. Jesus then showed me how communities that come together in faith and love can withstand the coming storm. He emphasized the importance of self-reliance and supporting one another outside of government systems. I saw families growing their own food, neighbors sharing resources, and churches becoming centers of hope and refuge. It was a beautiful vision, but also a challenging one. He made it clear that relying on corrupt systems would only lead to more bondage. Instead, we need to build networks of trust and compassion rooted in prayer and faith. He said, "Prepare, but not out of fear. Prepare out of love, so you can be a light to others." Those words stayed with me, even after I returned to my body. I knew this wasn't just about surviving. It was about being a beacon of hope in a world that's about to face its darkest hour. Suddenly, I felt myself being pulled back. It was like being drawn out of a deep, peaceful ocean and thrust into a storm. The next thing I knew, I was gasping for air, my body trembling as I woke up in a hospital bed. Tubes were everywhere, machines beeping, and doctors rushing around me. I was weak, so weak, but my mind was clearer than it had ever been. I could still feel the presence of Jesus, like a warmth in my chest, but the weight of what I had seen was overwhelming. I tried to speak, to tell someone what I had experienced, but my voice was barely a whisper. The nurses kept telling me to rest, that I had been through a trauma, but how could I rest? I had seen the Futura future that no one else seemed to know about. I felt an urgency, a burning need to share what I had learned, but I didn't know where to start. Over the next few days, as I regained my strength, I began to share my experience with the people around me, my family, my friends, even the hospital staff. Some listened with wide eyes, others nodded politely but didn't really believe me. I could see the doubt in their faces, and it hurt. How could I make them understand that this wasn't just a death experience? This was a warning, a call to action. I started writing everything down, every detail of what I had seen and heard. I knew I had to get the message out, even if it meant facing ridicule or rejection. I kept thinking about what Jesus had said. Many will fall because they trust in man instead of me. Those words haunted me. I couldn't let people fall into deception without at least trying to warn them. As I recovered, I felt a shift inside me. The accident had changed me in ways I couldn't fully explain. I wasn't the same person anymore. Before, I was focused on my career, on chasing stories and deadlines. But now, I felt like I had a bigger purpose, a mission. I started sharing my testimony wherever I could, even at my local church. At first, it was hard. Standing in front of people, telling them about my experience, felt vulnerable and scary. I could see the skepticism in some faces, the raised eyebrows, the whispers, but there were others who listened intently, their eyes filled with tears. They could feel the truth in what I was saying, and that gave me the courage to keep going. I started quoting scripture to back up what I had seen, like Matthew 24:6-7, where Jesus warns about wars and rumors of wars and how nations will rise against nations. It wasn't just a prophecy. It was happening, and I had seen it, but the resistance was real. Some people accused me of fear-mongering or said I was just traumatized from the accident. Others dismissed it as a hallucination, something my brain had created to cope with dying. It hurt, but I couldn't let it stop me. I kept thinking about the vision Jesus had shown me, the global crises, the spiritual battle, the importance of prayer and preparation. I knew I couldn't force anyone to believe me, but I also knew I couldn't just stay silent. I started reaching out to communities, encouraging them to come together, to pray, to prepare in practical ways. I shared how Jesus had shown me that self-reliance and faith could protect us from what's coming. It wasn't easy, but every time someone listened, every time someone said, "This makes sense," I felt a little more hope. I knew I was doing what I was called to do. Now, as I stand here sharing my story with all of you, I feel a mix of emotions. Part of me is still in awe of everything I experienced during those 30 minutes when I was gone from this world. But more than that, I feel a deep responsibility to keep sharing this message. The world is changing, and it's changing fast. What I saw wasn't just a warning, it was a call to action. Jesus showed me that the battles we face aren't just physical or economic, they're spiritual. And the only way to navigate what's coming is through faith, prayer, and community. I've seen how fear can paralyze people, but I've also seen how faith can move mountains. It's not about being afraid. It's about being prepared spiritually, emotionally, and even practically. We need to support each other to build networks of trust and love that can withstand the storms ahead. I don't have all the answers, and I don't know exactly how everything will unfold. But what I do know is this: God is in control. Even in the darkest times, His light will guide us. I keep coming back to Psalm 46:1, which says, God is our refuge and strength, and ever-present help in trouble. That verse has become my anchor. No matter what happens, no matter how chaotic the world gets, we can find peace in Him. My prayer for all of you is that you'll take this message to heart. Don't wait until it's too late to seek Him. Don't wait until the storm hits to build your faith. Start now. Pray now. Come together now. The battle is real, but so is the victory. And if we stand firm in our faith, we will see His promises fulfilled. Thank you for listening, and may God bless each and every one of you.